Dear students, good morning. Today we will discuss in this class about data, its sources, and its collection methods from business statistics subject of BCom second year, third semesters. What is the lesson plan for this class? We will have the definition, meaning, and origin of the term data, various methods of collecting data, then census versus sampling, sample design, different components of data collection, source of data, and primary data collection methods. These are the areas that we will cover in present class. What is data? In our day-to-day life, we come across with different kinds of things through newspapers, TV channels, and even we turn up the periodical regarding the numerical and non-numerical information. In technical terminology, in statistical approach, that can be called as data. But a layman may not easily understand its definition by naming them as numerical, quantification, etc. So that let us have a simple idea about its definition. Facts and statistics collected together for reference or analysis is called data. A standard definition from a statistics text is that facts and statistics collected together for reference or analysis. To refer in future case or to make your own judgment with citing a standard reference or to analyze your information when you depend on any expression that can be termed as data according to this first definition. There is another definition also, a simple definition about data. Statement, report, return, file, and document. All these are also togetherly called as data. So that if anything is submitted in the form of a statement, that may be horizontal form or vertical form. Similarly, a report prepared by an expert or a business analyst or a particular organization head in charge, if we prepare a report including various particulars of that particular thing, can also be called as data. And return, for example, an employee organization, when it submits income tax returns to the government, then it is also called as data. A file and a documentation, it is also called as data. And another standard definition is collection of any number of related observations on one or more variables. It is very close our further studies that. What is data? Collection of any number of related observations on one or more variables. If a person of a statistician or a teacher or a student who is going to work for his project, if we collect his observations, a related observation on one or more variables. Variables may be like, for example, if a student is working for his student study project, say satisfaction survey of Airtel network users of a particular place or region, then he can collect number of related observations that who are using, whether it is male or what is their socio-economic background, geographical background, their income levels, and their level of education, their level of income. These are different kinds of variables. So when here a student want to make his study on satisfaction survey of Airtel network users, then we can correct variable, different variables. So the observations you will make on different variables. Whatever observations you will make and record, that will be called as data. Further, it is, the slide can depict to you, data is not a simple terminology. It is very elaborate. It includes so many things. You just cannot say data means a fact, a picture, a diagram, a figure, a number. Only that. It includes so many things. Just look at this slide, you can find it. Data includes facts, figures, statistics, details, particulars, specifics, any numerical expression that may be in the form of you know addition, subtractions, multiplications in terms of millions, billions, rupees, quantities. Quantities may be liters, meters, kilometers, quintals. These are all numerical expressions. And features, information, evidence, intelligence, material, background, input, all these are part of data. So student, you must remember, data may be a fact, a figure, even a picture, a chart, graph, diagram, information, all are called as data if they are expressed directly or indirectly in the form of numerical. Then the word data, how it has been derived, what is its origin? The English word data has been derived from a Latin word datum. Then what does it mean? What does datum means? A single factual or an entity or point of matter is called datum. Hence why most often datums are called as data point. Therefore, we can summarize and conclude that data is collection of data points. What may be the data points? Just in our previous case, I said that when a student is making his project of satisfaction survey of geo network or aerial network, then when he collects the data of people, their income level, their employment, their socio-economic background, these are all data points only. For example, if we collect the data of 200 people, among them, how many are male, how many are female? 85 are male, 115 are female. What is their geographical background? Then 80% are urban, 20% are rural. This is a kind of expression we make for data representation. See, this is all called data points. Then what is data collection? Simply said, whenever you want to make an information, when you want to prepare a document, when you write a report, just we cannot write in a descriptive form of your own expression. That must be scientifically, statistically judged, supported, so that to be done in a technical way. Hence why the data collection, the term data collection has its own significance. Then how can we define data collection? Data collection is the process of gathering and measuring information on targeted variables in an established system, which then enables one to answer relevant questions and evaluate outcomes. So that it is a very broad and a wide definition, exhaustive definition into a data collection mechanism. So it has included what? It's a continuous process. It is not a single task. It includes a conglomeration of various tasks. What are the various tasks? That is, gathering will include, it involves measuring what the information has to gather and it. Then on what? On targeted variable in an established system, which then enables one to answer relevant questions. What are the relevant questions? Let me say, in our again previous example from, the student has done his project on satisfaction survey of Airtel network. He has collected so much of information. Now he has to answer to relevant questions. What are the relevant questions? Out of your 200 sample, how many are male, how many are female? He will say that 80 are male, 120 are female. What is their geographical background? 65 are village background, rural background, and 135 are urban background. What are their income levels? 80% are above 10,000 monthly income and 20% are below monthly income. These are the relevant to the question and evaluate the outcome. So, if a person can collect the information or gather the information, measure it with suitable devices and methods, and enable himself to answer to the relevant questions, and formally and finally evaluate his outcome, that all togetherly known as the data collection process. How data can be collected? Then, how can you collect the data? From where you will get it? Generally, data can be collected from census or from sample. For example, in a particular class, there are only 20 students. I want to know how many are male, how many are female. As the size is very less, totally I can make a count. And if I want to know how many are from rural background, how many are urban background, I can inquire from all that 20 or 30 students in the classroom. But if a particular meeting is organized in let me say, a big ground where more than, it is anticipated that more than 10 lakh people have attended, then how can I collect the data? How many are male? How many are female? Then I cannot count each head. Just picking randomly a few, I can make my own inference. So that when the size of the population is very less, we will go for the census, means counting all the people. When size is very huge, taking some amount from it and I count it, then it is called sample. So that data can be collected from whole population census from the sample. Let's look at this slide. If there are so many people in a circle, a big circle, if I count everyone and say out of these 500 people, there are 850, let me say 350 are male and rest of them are the female. Instead of that, I pick a hand pick amount, just group some amount and count them, then it is called as sample, a big circle or sample circle. From that, you must understand one thing, the sample is always chosen from the census and population only. This are, and another picture also you can see on the same slide, what is population or census, what is sample. Then, what is the difference between census and sample? Before going to the differences, let us have some definition or a brief idea about the terms census and sample. Census is study of everyone or everything in a population. For example, in a classroom there are 100 students. If you want to know about everyone, his name, his parents' name, his village background, his caste, and his previous school where he studied or college where he studied, etc., then all will be part of it. So that a census is a study of every unit, everyone, everything in a population. It is known as a complete enumeration, which means complete count. Enumeration means counting. Whereas a sample is a subset of units in a population selected to represent all units in a population of interest. So the sample is a subset. Let me get back to the previous slide. See here. See, in a census is a whole circle. When I count each and every head, that is called census. But out of a few amount is chosen, then it is called sample. So sample is the subset of the census. Yeah, look at this. The whole population is a big circle, and from that, if I choose few, it is a sample. For example, if you go to market to purchase grapes, there are about 10 to 50 kgs available in the market in a particular shop. But to know its taste, we cannot test each and every piece. A few, 2, 3 pieces we will just take with the permission of the person and we eat them and we will can say whether it is tasty or not. But to know the taste of the grapes, can we eat all the grapes? Then we depend on the sample. For example, if we want to purchase a TV from a shop, there are 4 already displayed TVs. We cannot just check one, we check all 4. So that is a population where it is possible to count, check everyone, everything, then we depend on the population to collect the data. When it is not possible and task, it is a very difficult task and time consuming, risk and costly, then we depend on the sample. Instead of counting everything and anything, we will take its representative. Then these are a few differences we can see from the slide from the census and sampling. Yeah. See, look at these. First one is a meaning. A systematic method that collects and records the data about the members of population is called census. Whereas sample is refers to a portion of the population. So as we seen in the previous slide, the census is collection of total population. But whereas sampling is the representative of the population. Then census can be done completely. Enumeration means counting can be done completely in census. But whereas sampling, a representative portion, partial amount can only be done. Then study. In census, each and every unit of the population can be studied. As I said, when you go to a TV shop, there are 5 TVs displayed in the showroom. Then we can check everyone. But whereas if you go to a banana shop, there are huge bananas. To purchase 1 or 2 dozens of banana, we cannot check every piece. Sample only will check. Only a handful of units of the population can be checked. And regarding the time period, to count everything in under census method, it takes much time. It is a tedious job, so that it consumes much time. But whereas sampling can consume less time process and it can be done easily also. Cost, yeah, absolutely. The cost will be involved more in case of census. Means when you want to collect each and every unit's data, then it includes much cost. But whereas in sample, it costs less. It's very economic event. That is why most of the studies are done based on the sampling itself also. Even if you go to the clothes shop to purchase a shirt or a pint, there will be thousands of pieces, but we cannot check everything. If you will check from them, the best one can be picked up. So that the sampling is highly depending source for decision making. Then the reliability, yes, which will be more accurate. Obviously, the data collected from through census board will be more reliable and accurate, whereas sampling is comparatively less. And errors regarding this, where will be the more scope to commit mistakes and errors? There will be more scope to commit errors in sampling than census, because in census each and everything we will count, check, verify, so that errors are minimized, eliminated. But whereas in sampling it may not. It is very suitable. To suitability, when we come to the suitability, the census method is very much suitable to the when population is heterogeneous nature, whereas sampling is suitable when it is homogeneous nature. Then components of sample design. How can it, then okay, it is not easy to collect the data through population. So most of the studies can be made, data can be collected based on the sample only. Then how you can collect this sample? We have to design a sample. Sample design is a systematic plan for the sample. Data collection, collecting the data through sample is called a sample design. A systematic procedure it is. Then how you can collect the sample design? So to design the sample, we must be familiar with these 5 terms: population, sample, sample unit, sample frame, sample size. One must be very familiar and very must be very clear about this term. Then only we could collect the data effectively and efficiently. Then what is it? Briefly, we can find it. Sample design. What do you mean by sample design? As I said, it is a systematic plan of collecting the data. For that, first we have to do what? As I said in the population, we should know what is population. So, population is also known as universe. It is total size of the variable, total size of the respondents. All items are called population or universe. Then sample. The second term is sample. Sample means what? A small part or quantity intended to show what the whole is like. So the sample is the representative or subset of the population. It's a small part of the population. For example, if you go to a rice shop to purchase 2 or 3 quintals of rice, can we check every particle? No. Just we will take some rice onto the hand, we will pour on our palm and check them. That's all. That is. Then sample unit. The sample unit may be an individual, means a person, a singular value, or a single selection taken from the entire population. For example, if we want to study the performance of particular scheme in particular village, then that is a sample unit. The village what you have selected to study is called a sample unit. Let me say I have done my PhD, wherein my title of PhD is Voluntary Retirement Scheme, a study of select takings in Andhra Pradesh. So that how the voluntary retirement scheme is implemented, functioning, and what are the results of it, I want to study for my PhD work. So how I can do it? I cannot almost various banks, public sector undertakings, government undertakings, institutions, corporations, all have implemented the VRS. I cannot go all of them. Then I made it as 3 units like IDPL, HMT, HAL. So these 3 are called sample unit. Like then sample frame. This list of sampling. Nesting frame means these 3 when I include for my study, when I collect data from each and every unit, from HMT organization independently, IDPL organization independently, HAL organization independently, that unit is called sample unit. If they all are made into frame, that is called sample frame. Then sample size. What is sample size? The number of units you want to collect. I said to know about the effectiveness of VRS, though there are 500 units already implementing VRS, I have not taken all 500. I have taken only 3 units. That is called by sample size. So always sample size should be like an optimum, neither large nor small. As per certain studies, it should not be less than 10 to 15% of the population. For example, in a class, 100 students are there. If the principal of that college want to know the performance of a particular teacher or is teaching, he may go to that class, he will inquire with the student. He may inquire total 100 students, then it is called census method. Just you want to ask 1 or 2, it is not suitable sample. Out of 100 students, by taking 1 or 2 students' opinion, if all 2 said that the teacher is not teaching well, principal cannot make his inference based on the 2. And he cannot inform that particular teacher that you not teach. I collected the information from the student, they are not happy. So that to justify his inferences, at least sample size should be 10 to 15%. So that he has to inquire with 10 to 15 students out of 100. Then his information will be valid and reliable information. Okay. Then how to collect the data? What are the components of data collection? Just look at that slide. We have 3 important components for data collection: investigator, respondents, enumerator. These three one must know. Investigator is a principal scholar, a researcher who want to inquire or investigate the work or an issue or a particular initiated job. Principal researcher, a person who want to collect the data on particular project or issue or incident or thing is called investigator. Respondent. Respondents are the person from whom investor or investigator want to collect the data. Respondents are those from whom investor or investigator want to collect the data. Enumerators. Yeah, this is a new term. You should know about it. When principal investigator is not able to go everywhere to collect the data on behalf of him, he may send some people as his representatives. Those are called enumerators. For example, again, if principal, again in a particular college, principal wants the functioning or satisfaction levels of students about college functioning, there are about 20 classes. For all classes, principal, that is investigator, may not go directly. Then what he can do? Who are the from whom the principal will collect the data? From students. Students are called the respondents. Investigator or principal researcher is called principal of the college or headmaster of the school. So as there are 20 school classes for each and every class, as he cannot go directly because it consumes much time and risky job, then he can take some teachers or his school or college employees help. Those are called enumerator, through which he collects the data from the respondent. So these are the three important terms one must remember while collecting the collection. Then, from where data can be collected? When a person want to do a research, when a student want to do a project work, when college principal want to collect the students' data, and when I want to make a study about the satisfaction of workers in particular organization, how I can know that? How I can collect the data? Where is the source? Whenever I want some grocery, straight away I'm going to a nearby shop or the super bazaar, I am picking up whatever I want. But when I want the data, how I can collect it? Where it can available? So that to get the data, we have two types of sources: internal sources and external sources. Internal sources are government departments. Government departments, if you want to know, let me say, uh, functioning or let me say the plans and decision making chain of a particular bank, straight away I will go to the bank and I will correct the data from that bank records, reports, documents, and periodical journals, etc., etc. There itself, it's the internal source. Organization will have its own schedules, so that the government departments one source of internal source, and business organizations and houses, they too maintain reports, records, documents, volumes. So these are called internal source. Then external source. External source means, for example, again, let me continue a college example. If principal want to know the information about the students, he will collect it from the his own records, internal source. The internal source, college records, student profile records, attendance registers. If there is a separate scholarship document is maintained, from that scholarship document also you can collect the data. If admission register is there, from admission register itself we can collect the data. So this is internal source. If it is not so, internal source is not available, then you will depend on external source. The outside the organization you will collect. From external source we have two methods. One is primary source and second one is secondary source. Then what is primary source? The primary source is the source which is collected directly, first time source. Straight away we will go to the respondents, we will collect the data. If that particular student data is already recorded by a concerned class teacher, so that instead of going to the student, we will go to the class and ask him to give the data. Then that class teacher can open the register and give the data of that particular student or students, that secondary data. So that the primary sources are the first term sources. Straight away by going, observing them or interviewing them and giving a question, posing a question to a direct student, we will collect the data. Instead of that, if data is already available, from that we collect, that is called secondary data. Then what are the methods of collecting primary data? Then the methods of collecting primary data we have broadly divided into 5. To collect the primary data, we have 5 different methods. Observation method, direct personal investigation, indirect personal investigation, and through correspondence, and finally questionnaire. And what is observation? It is a technique that involves systematically collecting, watching, listening, and recording of. When we want to collect the data or information on particular event or a person or his behavior, his character, or any other relevant features, what we can do, we can observe them, how he is behaving. We cannot ask him, what is your attitude, how you are behaving. When a teacher receives complaint about a particular boy that he is arrogant in the classroom, I may not go straight away to that boy and ask, are you arrogant or behaving rudely? No, I cannot. As a scholar, as a researcher, what I can do? I can just make an observation without knowing without a respondent do not know that the investigator or researcher is observing him. So that the observation is what? It is a technique that involves systematically collecting, watching, listening, and recording of events, behaviors, characteristics, other relevant features. Then the observation has certain characteristics like scientific observation is systematic, observation is specific, scientific observation is very objective, objective oriented. For whatever objective you set, for that only we will observe, and observation is recorded immediately. Then it can be done by the expert. Observation cannot be made by anybody. For example, if a particular patient is suffering with fever and periodical fluctuations and erratic fluctuations of his heart beating, we cannot ask everybody to observe him. We cannot know whether the rhythm of his heart is fluctuating or not, or how the pulse is missing. It can be done by an expert only. So that observation can be done by an expert only. They are able to record and make an evaluation and make a decision for appropriate suitability. And observation is verifiable also. Of course, there are various types of observation like participant observation, non-participant observation, direct observation, indirect observation, controlled observation, and uncontrolled observation. The second method of primary source, the collection method of collecting the primary source information is direct personal investigation. It is also known as personal interview method. Here, interviewer asking questions generally in face-to-face contact to the other. Here, when we want to collect the data from particular person or organization, what happens here? The investigator will go straight away to him and face-to-face, he interact with him, he pose questions and collect the information. That he will be on the spot. Remember, in this direct personal investigation, investigator will not sit somewhere and respondent will be another place. Both can shoot face to face or direct access. Then they meet and collect the data. This method is particularly suitable for intensive investigation. Then what is suitability? The suitability of this direct personal investigation and observation method is scope of inquiry or area of investigation is small or limited. Where the scope of inquiry or area of investigation is very small or limited. Remember, most of the police inquiries are made through these. One or two people, if they want to inquire, they straight away go to them and they will pose questions to them and gather the information, elicit the information. When a high degree of accuracy is required, yes, when you want to have high degree of accuracy, efficiency in the data, then we depend on this method. When results of the investigation are to be kept in secret, this is another, as I said, the police inquiry, right? So when you want to keep the results of the investigation in secrecy, then we depend on this method. When area of investigation is heterogeneous. Then third one is indirect personal investigation. Under this method, what we do, it is also known as indirect personal interview. Here interview contact third parties or witness. Here we cannot go to the respondent directly. He will collect the data from the third person about the respondent. If I, for example, many a times if I want to know about a particular student's behavior, I do not ask question that student. I will ask another student about this boy. That is called indirect personal investigation. Generally, this method is adopted by the government committees and direct source do not exist. When expert information is needed, this method is used. And fourth method is through correspondence. Through correspondence. Here what happens when investigator do not go everywhere and every time, then what happens? He will appoint certain people or certain legal agents for him to collect data. Those are known as the correspondents. The persons who will function on behalf of the principal interviewer is called correspondents. It is more suitable when area of investigation is very less. When area of investigation is very large, this method can be used. For example, if your investigation area is, let me say, whole district, then you or inquire the implementation and effectiveness of particular government scheme or certain project, certain policy. So of a particular pilot scheme, they want to study in a district. Even in a district, there will be about 20 to 30 mandals. In each mandal, there will be more than 20 villages. So that the interviewer may not go to all places himself. Then what he can do? He will depend on the representative. Those representatives are called correspondents. So that when the investigation area is very large, then we will depend on this method. Next, no high degree of accuracy is required. Of course, the accuracy is not exactly required. Absolutely, it should be accurate. Then we may depend on some other number. But even though there is a kind of variation of also in accuracy, but it should be close to the accuracy, then we go through this method. In fact, it is very cheap and economical also, because the investigator, for example, an interviewer is in Delhi, one of the student, otherwise is working on a particular scheme, but he is working in Delhi, then if we want to collect the data from Hyderabad or a particular district like Warangal or Karimnagar, if we come from Delhi to Karimnagar and Warangal, it involves much risk, much cost, time consuming, a big process, isn't it? More energies are required. But instead of that, what happens? The principal investigator will sit in Delhi itself. He will make some of his known people at Warangal as correspondents and Karimnagar as correspondents. In a single day, from both districts, he will collect the data, staying at the Delhi itself. By evening, he will prepare the report. This is why it is very economical and cheap. It may not be, of course, not reliable, because a Delhi professor may not know what exactly happening at Karimnagar. A fellow who is collecting data, whether going through correspondent or respondents or not, maybe himself writing with his own imagination. How do we know? So that the reliability will be very less. The degree of bias will be more, partiality will be more in this case. Last method of external data collection is questionnaire method. In fact, we will have another session for it tomorrow or the day other. But what is questionnaire? What are the characteristics? How many types of questions are there? How we will collect it? What are the features of a good questionnaire, etc. We will discuss in the next class. But today, just a brief about the questionnaire. The questionnaire means what? It is a set of printed or written question with choice of answers divided for the purpose of survey or statistical study. Then a questionnaire is a research instrument consisting of series of questions for the purpose of gathering information respondent. And the questionnaire was invented by the Statistical Society of London in 1838. The first time questionnaire was invented in 1838. And the questionnaire, briefly, let me have a concise idea today. Tomorrow we will have another lesson and another session for it. Then we will have more elaborative presentation. But the questionnaire is what? It is a set of printed and written questions with choice of answers, multiple choice or open-ended or closed-ended or fill in the blank, etc. types of questions will be there. Those questions are devised or prepared for the purpose of the study or a statistical study. Means it is objective oriented. And in fact, the questionnaire is most appropriate, highly dependable research instrument to collect the data. So this is all about today's presentation. Thank you very much. Tomorrow again we will come with a new topic, that is a questionnaire, and what do you mean by questionnaire, what are the different definitions, characteristics, components, types of questions, designing the questionnaire, benefits and difficulties, etc. can be discussed in the tomorrow's class. Thank you very much.